Have you ever felt like your to-do list is full of what other people want you to do, but your wants and needs barely make the cut? And maybe this used to be okay. Maybe you had more time and energy, and maybe taking care of other people felt really good. But maybe now you're starting to feel a little bit like, well, something's off. I don't even really know who I am. Something's missing here. If this sounds like you might be stuck in a cycle of people pleasing, and you're definitely not alone in that. There's many men and women out there who find that when it's time to transition from taking care of other people and prioritizing other people to including themselves in that they really struggle. It's really hard to include themselves in their to-do list. But here's the thing, it's really important. In fact, it's really essential if you want to show up authentically and sustainably for the other people in your life. You're going to need to make this transition to taking care of other people, to including yourself in this, because if you take care of yourself, the more of who you are can show up authentically for everybody else. It's a win-win all around. Hi, I'm Dr. Julie, a psychologist and relationship coach, and I talk about all things related to people pleasing. In this video today, I'm going to help you figure out when you're saying yes for all the right reasons and when you're crossing that line into overcommitting or sacrificing yourself. We're going to cover 4 signs you're overcommitting, and I'm going to give you some practical tips to stop the cycle. So let's dive in. Let's start with that nagging feeling that we all get on occasion that we try to push down or ignore, and that is resentment. It's that pit in your stomach feeling when you've agreed to do something and then you later regret it, and it could be just a few minutes later. That's resentment, and that's a huge red flag. When you say yes to someone and your inner voice is screaming, no, 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 I don't want to do that, you're really ignoring your own needs and boundaries. That inner voice is important to listen to. Now, you might have said yes because you're feeling obligated to your friend, or you told yourself that you should do the thing that they've asked you to do. But these shoulds are a clue you're not really acting out of kindness as much as you are out of fear or guilt of disappointing somebody. And this problem is going to build into resentment over time. It starts out with a little bit of irritation, and then it grows into a full-blown frustration. And then that makes you a lot less present and a lot less effective at the things that you have committed to. And let's be real, that resentment isn't hurting just you, it's putting a strain on your relationships. So the next time you're asked to do something, I want you to pause and check in with yourself. And if you don't have time to check in with yourself and respond right away with what you really want to say, tell the person that you're going to have to get back to them later today or tomorrow. This is going to give you some time to think about it. And what I want you to do during that time is I want you to ask yourself, am I going to feel good about saying yes to this tomorrow? Or am I going to be annoyed with myself for saying yes? And the answer to that question can help guide your choice and what you're going to say to the other person. Now, how you communicate this choice is a whole new skill you probably don't have because you haven't been exercising it. So stick around to the end of the video, and I'm going to talk to you about a resource for learning more about how to say no, or how to set a boundary, or how to express what you need. Another telltale sign is constant exhaustion. If you're running on empty, but you're still saying yes and still doing more, you're likely overcommitting. When we overextend ourselves, it's easy to convince ourselves that we're being good or helpful, which is like what we want to be, right? But let's flip the script on that for a moment. If your friend came to you and said, I'm feeling super drained, like I have no time for myself, but I have to do this one last thing for somebody, what would you say to them? Chances are you'd say you need to slow down, set some boundaries, prioritize yourself, prioritize your well-being, right? You deserve it. So why don't you deserve the same advice? Overcommitting does not make you more lovable or more valuable. It just makes you tired. And tired people are not showing up as their best selves. So a quick rule of thumb is if you're too tired to genuinely enjoy helping, it's a sign that you need to take a step back and say no. And saying no is not being selfish, it's being responsible. Now let's talk about one of the sneakiest reasons we people please, and that is to avoid conflict or disapproval. Have you ever agreed to something just because you didn't want to upset somebody? Maybe you thought, well, if I say no, they'll be mad, or they'll think I'm lazy, or they will think I'm unkind, or some other label, right? This is people pleasing in its purest form, doing what others want you to do to avoid conflict or discomfort. But the truth is, you can't control how other people feel. You can't control what they think about you. And even if you bend over backwards, there is always going to be somebody who disapproves. You're never going to get to that place where you don't get disapproval or criticism from somebody. And honestly, that's okay. You don't need everyone's approval to live a meaningful, authentic life. What you do need is your own approval. You need to feel good about the decisions you're making for yourself. And that is going to come from honoring your boundaries and staying true to your values. That is going to come from not overcommitting yourself. So before you say yes, ask yourself, am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or am I doing this because I'm afraid how someone else will react if I don't? And if your motivation is coming from fear or guilt, it's a sign to rethink your choice. If you need some help with saying no, you can get my free guide, Saying It Right, Your Guide to Confident Communication. There's a link in the description. Finally, sometimes people pleasing doesn't even look like guilt or fear. Sometimes it looks like enthusiasm. This was my biggest issue. The ask seems fun or manageable. You glance at your calendar and you think, oh, sure, I can squeeze that in. That'll be fun. But fast forward to the day of the commitment, and suddenly you're regretting it. You don't want to go. You don't want to do the thing you committed to. And this happens because we haven't stopped to take the time and get to know ourselves and our own limitations and what we really want to do. Maybe your schedule technically has the time and you can squeeze it in, but you didn't account for how much energy you're going to need that day, how much energy the other commitments on your calendar are going to take, or how much rest you're going to need afterwards. And you're overcommitted yourself as a result. It's easy to overcommit if we ignore how we feel in the moment and only focus on whether the task is doable, or we only focus on how much we want to do it now and not think about how we're going to feel later. If it's doable on paper, that doesn't mean it's what's best for you. Over time, these small, seemingly harmless yeses are going to add up, leaving you feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, not just with the situation, but also with yourself for saying yes in the first place. So my tip to avoid this is before you agree to something, ask yourself 2 questions. Will I have the energy to do this when the time comes? And the second question is, will this still feel like a good idea if I'm busy or tired? If you're not sure, it's okay to say, let me think about it and get back to you, which can give you some time to really consider what your energy needs are for that day or other things on your calendar, and can save you a lot of regret down the line. Now, I just suggested checking in with yourself about how you're feeling to help you set better boundaries and say if doing so would keep you from overcommitting. But what if other people push back and you know they're going to? What if they say you're being selfish for not doing what they ask, even if it causes you to go beyond your limits? This is this whole fear and the guilt that comes up. And people are super good at doing this to us, often in very subtle ways. And if you ask them about it, they'll say they didn't do that. That's not what they said. That's not what they meant. But you got the message, right? We all know those moments when someone questions our choices and makes you feel guilty for prioritizing yourself or saying no. It's tough, but you don't have to face this alone. I'm going to be hosting a live workshop on how to confidently respond to your own fears and accusations of others that you're being selfish because you're trying to take care of yourself and not overcommit. You're going to leave the workshop with tools to handle these conversations without losing your cool and without overcommitting. You can get details about the workshop by clicking the link in the description. And at the end of the workshop, there's going to be a Q&A session where you can ask me directly your questions about what's coming up for you. So click the link in the description and sign up today. Let's do a quick recap. I've discussed 4 signs that you might be overcommitting yourself. These are resentment after saying yes. That's your gut telling you that something's off. That's being exhausted, but still pushing when you need to take a step back and recharge a little bit. That's saying yes to avoid conflict. It's time to start prioritizing your own needs over others. And finally, that's saying yes enthusiastically without considering your needs and limitations at the time that you're going to need to do that. Remember, learning to stop overcommitting and people pleasing is an entire process. It's not going to change overnight, and that's okay. The important thing is to start noticing these patterns and giving yourself permission to put your own needs on the list. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and share the video with somebody else who struggles with this problem. And to help grow this channel, please subscribe to the channel because it tells YouTube who to show this video to next. Take care and have a great week.